Traders! Stop shorting into supports in a bullish environment and pay attention. Bitcoin has done something very important over the recent sessions. Trend lines broke, but price never broke lower. Instead, the market absorbed the bearish activity and held key levels, and is now quietly moving higher again. That's not weakness, that's bullishness, people. But before we get into the charts, let's take a look at what's happening on the macro side, because it explains perfectly why strength is showing up right now. Let's go! Check this out. Coinbase's John D'Agostino said on CNBC that he doesn't know a single major company that isn't currently developing a blockchain strategy. Let's take a listen.
And this is sort of what's been frustrating for those of us who work on the institutional side for the last 6-7 months, has been the delta between retail negative sentiment and institutional and regulatory momentum. So we look back at last year, and I must have been on 20 shows talking about how bad Bitcoin was doing. Net down 6% for the entire year. Right. This is an asset that's been the best performing asset by far, by a mile. It's been the GOAT 9 out of 12 years. So institutions understood that. So I don't know a single institution that was putting in the work on crypto and Bitcoin last year that stopped because the asset experienced, quite frankly, typical volatility and was down 6%.
So there was nobody.
All right, we got the gist of it. If Meet Kevin and Steve Carell had a kid, it would be this guy. Anyway, that's a massive statement. It tells us that blockchain adoption isn't speculative anymore. It's becoming a corporate infrastructure. That is truly amazing. And it doesn't stop there. Morgan Stanley has just filed for a spot Bitcoin and Solana ETF. What a surprise. That's one of the largest financial institutions in the world preparing regulated access to both Bitcoin and Solana. Wow. Now, look at the flows. Spot Bitcoin ETFs are entering 2026 like a lion. Over $1.2 billion, Mr. Powers, in inflows just in the first 2 days of the year. At that pace, we're talking about roughly $150 billion per year. Wow! If ETFs could pull in $22 billion during periods of high uncertainty, imagine what happens when confidence fully returns, and lower interest rates for that matter. So, while price action may look calm on the surface, institutions are clearly positioning aggressively underneath. Now, let's see how all of this macro strength aligns with the charts. Starting with Bitcoin on the monthly, this major trend line that I've been talking about consistently is still fully intact. Not only that, but the current monthly candle is also pushing higher. That tells us that the long-term structure is still bullish. As long as this trend line holds, Bitcoin stays in a macro bullish trend. So what this means for traders and investors are that bullish setups are more likely to follow through. Tests of support levels are more likely to hold. Failed lows are more likely to occur and reverse higher compared to trying to sell resistance levels, because resistance levels in this type of environment are going to be more likely to break, right? Higher lows often lead to higher highs. I'm going to say that often. Now, look at the Ethereum Bitcoin crosspair on the weekly time frame. Ethereum against Bitcoin has broken out, and now it's doing exactly what strong breakouts do. It's retesting the level. A weekly breakout followed by a successful retest is a very bullish signal. This tells us Ethereum is gaining strength relative to Bitcoin, which usually happens during healthy expansions. The fact that Ethereum is gaining strength and momentum relative to Bitcoin also is a reflection of the altcoin space in general. Just something to keep in mind. On the Bitcoin daily, price is sitting right at a clear breakout setup. If this structure plays out, a move back toward the 100K region becomes very realistic. What matters here is pressure, and the pressure is still developing with a bullish bias. This is where real strength shows up. On the 4-hour time frame, Bitcoin broke its main trend line, as you can see here. But notice what happened next. Price never sold off. There was no continuation lower. Instead, Bitcoin held this level. Bitcoin consolidated, and now it's moving higher. When a bearish break fails, it usually means strong buyers are protecting that zone. That's not weakness. That's clear bullish strength. Also, important note, when you have consolidations that fail to break lower, like this instance, half the population here of traders are short. So when the market fails to go lower, those shorts are forced to become longs. And as they are forced out of their positions, it causes more buying activity on top of all the new buyers piling in on the breakout. That is what leads to a follow through of a breakout in a situation like this and change of trend. And as price attempts to pull back to retest that level, you're going to have more shorts that are going to want to cover and break even. That is why it becomes a higher probability buying opportunity. On the 2-hour time frame, price looks like it's pulling back into these order blocks. Now, this is healthy price action. Strong trends pull back into demand, then continue higher. As long as this structure stays intact, these zones offer opportunities to trade higher. That means you're looking for pullbacks into the zones. If these zones are touched, you're looking for bullish reversals. If you get such a confirmation, you now have a higher probability setup that price continues following this anticipated path that you see here. Now let's talk about Ethereum. These are the same daily levels covered in my previous video, and there's good reason for that. It's because they're working perfectly. Ethereum held this area and then moved higher exactly as expected. This is a key zone, and as long as price maintains itself above this zone, probability is likely to favor this illustrated scenario that you see here. On the 4-hour Ethereum chart, that same level is still being respected. As long as Ethereum continues to hold this area, the expectation is still continuation higher. Nothing here is broken. Nothing here looks weak. Higher lows often lead to higher highs. Any pullback into this zone, or especially if it sustains itself above this zone, is a higher probability buying opportunity. The key is to wait for bullish reversal confirmations. So when we put everything together, Bitcoin's monthly trend line remains intact. Ethereum against Bitcoin has broken out and is successfully retesting. Bitcoin's daily is coiling for a breakout toward the 100K level. Bitcoin 4-hour broke structure and refuses to fail. Bitcoin 2-hour is pulling back into bullish order blocks. Ethereum levels continue to deliver exactly as outlined, and institutions are aggressively positioning through ETFs and corporate adoption. Weak markets sell faster when structure breaks. Strong markets absorb selling and move higher anyway. That's what bullish strength looks like, people. If you want to trade these levels yourself, I left my exchange links in the description. BTCC and WEX. Use them only if they help. They support the channel and give you access to the same tools. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your 2 cents. Do it. Do it now. The market doesn't show strength by going straight up. It shows strength by revealing an absence of weakness, especially when weakness has every opportunity to take control. Right now, the charts and the macro are telling the same story. Stay patient, respect the structure, and I'll see you in the next one.